It's been 10 years since the trucks raced in the grueling desert around Laughlin, Nevada. A lot of things have changed since then. Look at the oasis that has grown up on the banks of the Colorado River, a gambling mecca. And now the race trucks are back for the Laughlin Desert Challenge, and two things haven't changed: the heat, and this guy is still the man to beat. Hey, the bleachers are jammed. The trucks are ready. Let's go desert racing.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain. Welcome to the Laughlin Desert Challenge. The trophy trucks ready to rock and roll here on ESPN. Now, in this form of the sport where the terrain is so much a part of the story, hey, everywhere you go, the story of the race is the place.
This is the place for racing this weekend. It's Laughlin, Nevada, a gambling resort that has sprung up right alongside the Colorado River across from Bullhead City, Arizona. And the community has helped to bring the racers back, in part for this, the Laughlin Leap, a big jump that's going to pay some extra cash. We'll enjoy that. Our analyst for the race, Bob Bauer.
Well, Dave, where were you in 1985? Some of us were right here in Laughlin, Nevada, racing. Now, 10 years has totally changed Laughlin, Nevada, but it hasn't changed the desert that surrounds it. This race course is the same today as it was back then. It's tight, nasty, twisty, technical for the drivers, and I'll tell you what, if a driver's going to make it here, if he's really going to win, it's going to take a lot of patience and an awful lot of discipline. For the truck to win, it's going to take quick acceleration and incredibly good cornering ability. You see, passing is going to be almost impossible. If a man makes a mistake when he tries to pass here, it could cost him the whole race.
That race will be 4 laps of a course that's roughly 42 miles long, and it runs through the desert where the ridges are all lined with folks who have turned out to see the excitement of these unlimited $250,000 trucks. Bob, tell us a little about the layout here.
Well, in the upper right-hand corner at the start-finish, they start with 11 miles of very tough, tight, technical stuff. The bottom loop there, starting at pit A, starts to be a very fast part of the course. They can get up some speed here, but when it comes back together, it slows down again, goes all the way up to pit B, very twisty, canyons, rocky, dusty. Then it comes back to the start-finish for another lap.
Take a look at the driver championship points here with 2 to go. Ivan Stewart has a 58-point lead over the Baja 500 winner Jim Smith, and Stewart can clinch the title here today. He has a lot of fans if you closely check the t-shirts among those gathered here at the Laughlin Leap. The community has put up extra money for a big jump near the start-finish line, and these enthusiastic folks are going to be watching the likes of Jimmy Johnson, the first truck out today, the youngster from El Cajon, California.
Jimmy absolutely totaled this truck in the last race, so he's got a lot on his mind right now. He's also the youngest driver in the race. In fact, when we were here in 1985, Jimmy was only in the 4th grade. How's that?
I'd love to be 19 years old and have an 800 horsepower truck to play with. Here is your defending series champion, and he starts second today. This is Rob McCachran. He's 30 years old, out of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he's driving the oldest truck in the race. This truck debuted in 1988. Rob has a lot going for him in this truck. This is his kind of race course because it's very technical, and he's also got more experience. He ran 2 other races this weekend, so he's got more time on this course than any driver in this trophy truck race.
Hey, we asked him if he thought he'd get tired. He said, hey, man, I came to race. Let's see Jimmy Smith next. Jimmy, of course, won last year's Baja 1000 here on ESPN. He's the other end of the age spectrum, 48 years old. And behind him, Steve Kelly in one of Walker Evans' Dodges. Steve from Irvine, California, 46 years of age. And with that, we move to a very interesting story of this race. Robbie Gordon, the IndyCar racer, scheduled to start 5th today. But in fact, Frank Sauk, VP Sales, Johnson Controls, the ever-ready people, drops the green on Bob Gordon, Robbie's dad, and Robbie is in a jet high over the desert.
Well, he's on his way from Laguna Seca in his IndyCar race in the Derek Walker car. That race didn't go so well for him. He had some horrible problems beginning it. And I'll tell you, I think he's looking for a lot better result out of Laughlin than he got out of Laguna Seca.
We'll be following that story and the quest for the championship by Ivan Stewart, the Iron Man, as his Toyota starts 6th here today. No co-driver for this guy. The seat's right in the middle of this 6-cylinder lightweight Toyota, the lightest and nimblest truck in the field, perhaps an advantage here today. And note that he is not going over the Laughlin Leap. He said, I'm not going to tear up my truck. I got a championship to win. And now, Bob, tell me about another of the youngsters in the field, Jason Baldwin, starting 7th here today.
He is fast. This guy had a terrible time yesterday in testing. He tore off the right front corner of the truck. They got it fixed overnight by flying to California, get the parts, come back and work all night. He thinks he's ready. Let's hope he is.
The point being that these guys are very, very serious about their racing. This is the next to last round of the season, and Baldwin uncorks a big leap over the Laughlin Leap as we get underway with the action here. Ivan Stewart headed out of town. Bob Bauer, how hot is it?
Well, I don't know. I think it's pretty nice. Actually, it's all the way down to 105 right now.
Cooled off 10 degrees since yesterday. Ivan, hit the AC on that baby. We'll take a break and come back with more of the Laughlin Desert Challenge right after this. The Score Laughlin Desert Challenge is brought to you by Yokohama Tire Corporation. When you turn on Yokohama tires, you turn on technology. And by Toyota Motorsports. Our minds are always racing. And by Dodge. The more things change, the more things look like the new Dodge. Big crowd on hand for the Laughlin Leap. Meanwhile, the leaders are already out into the desert. This is Jim Smith and the Ford, the Ultra Wheels entry. This is an interesting segment right here, Bob.
Well, they go down this hill, and, you know, it looks a lot more frightening than it is. A lot of guys will just gas it off the edge there.
Here is Kurt Leduc, who you saw winning the Baja 500, an upset victory on ESPN. And we'll ride along with Kurt. As you can see, they have watered rather liberally in this section of the course, and it's a little sloppy and slippery. Let's listen. Now, moderate leap over the Laughlin Leap. Everybody's saving their best shot at that for the last lap. They don't want to break the truck, but they do want to win the $7,500. This is a good truck for this course.
Well, this is a very short wheelbase car, almost as short as the Toyota, so that the twisty, very tight technical part of the course is going to favor this car because it's so maneuverable compared to the other trucks.
And that, of course, is the part that lies ahead. All of this sort of stadium stuff that we've seen so far is laid out right on the outskirts of Laughlin. Here is Bob Gordon running Robbie Gordon's truck. And to reiterate, Robbie was running the IndyCar finale today at Laguna Seca, got punted off the start, wound up 15th, hopped a helicopter to the airport, jumped in a Learjet, and is on his way here. And now we're getting a report of a problem for Bob Gordon. He's pulling off the course. What's this all about?
Well, it's a lot simpler than it looks. Actually, what's happened is the first aid kit has popped out of the door. This is only about the 3rd mile of the race, and they're just putting it back and securing it before they go on for the rest of the course. Not a real problem.
Bouncing around down there under his feet and getting in the way of the pedals. And so, with a bit of an encouragement from the crowd, Gordon will press on as Ivan Stewart comes into view. And I think it's time to talk about strategy for this guy. How does he approach this race today?
Ivan is going to get up to a certain speed and a certain level and hold it. He will not be diverted from his plan by anybody else. If his great pace is good enough to win, he'll take it. If it's not, he'll live with it.
I would not expect to see him launch the Toyota off this leap right here, even though the fans are dying to see that. Use the brakes, ease it over, take care of the truck. This guy's been doing this a long, long time, and in his quest for yet another championship, Stewart is not going to do anything silly. On the other hand, Jason Baldwin's not the least bit concerned about throwing that truck around. He got some good air there.
Jason is a hard charger, and he's done very well in the last couple of races, and I'm thinking that he has a win in his sights for this race if the truck holds up.
Interesting in this division, you've got the old foxes like Ivan Stewart and Walker Evans, but you also have these youngsters like Jimmy Johnson and this young man Jason Baldwin, who definitely represent the future of off-road racing. They're fun to watch. Now here's Paul Simon, who with his brother Dave as co-driver, the hottest team out there. They've won 2 of the last 3 races.
This is a hard charging team. It's also the only team in the race that has a scheduled planned driver change. Dave will get in for the second half of the race, and it may cost him extra time to do that.
All right, motorcycle folks, check this out. Larry Rossler, the 10-time Baja 1000 motorcycle winner, making his first trophy truck start in one of Walker Evans' Dodges, and he sounds confident.
Well, reading the terrain is a big part of off-road racing, and learning what your equipment can do, and just being able to read the terrain, look far ahead, anticipating you know, the obstacle ahead. Here at Laughlin is a relatively new course to all of us. We all got one lap around it. Some maybe went around on Friday, so it's not going to be your typical race course where everybody's real familiar with the terrain. You know, it's going to be new to everybody. So for me to look at it one time, I feel real comfortable with that. I think that's a lot like what I have to deal with in the other motorcycle races. So I think that's definitely to my advantage.
And the last truck off the line will be Javier Espinosa from Ensenada, Mexico, a community with a big off-road heritage, and this guy's a real enthusiast.
He's not only an enthusiast, he has a very enthusiastic driving style. Let's watch him.
He's headed for the desert, the last truck away from the line, and that means the focus of this race now shifts to the remaining 40-odd miles of each loop. Kurt Leduc, we mentioned, won the Baja 500. We should add he won the Baja 500 without high gear, a major upset. And as he brings the Donna B Jeep up to this big drop-off, he's hoping for a repeat performance without the mechanical difficulties here today.
Well, Kurt knows he can win the race, and I kind of expect to see him hard charging right through this whole jump here. I doubt he'll slow down much.
All right. Pretty good air. The fans obviously liked it a lot. That's what it looks like from the outside looking in on that Jeep. Let's say we replay that one time. We'll get on the inside and look out.
Whoa. You know, Dave, you just said the 2 words that a co-driver never wants to hear from his driver. Look out. The other 2 are hold on.
That's right. The driver's not confident. You can bet the co-driver needs to be scared. Walker Evans in the Dodge, 14th in the running order, started way back downfield. And again, he's bouncing and flinging that thing around, and that's probably our cue to talk a little bit about the suspension on these things. What kind of travel are we talking about? Whoa!
Oh, I think that Walker traveled about 8 feet in the air on that one. You know, Dave, we've got a piece coming up later in the show that gives you a lot of great information on how trophy trucks have wheel travel.
Oh, in other words, you're going to make me wait for that of it. We're not going to make you wait for the replay of that jump as Walker takes the big V10 down the hill. That one's worth another look.
Well, you know, when he hits this thing, you're going to see some suspension really scoop some dirt. And then see how he steers to the right like that? That's because he's used to being in the air. If he'd steered to the left, we'd have seen a crash.
And Walker knows that because he's been doing this since he won his first major race 25 years ago. How about Espinosa? That's a real nice section, fun to watch. You can see where the crowd have gathered there.
Well, he's an excited driver. You know, this is right off the start, Dave, here. We're only about 3 miles into it, as I said before. So these drivers are really cranked up, and he's doing everything he can to keep from making a mistake. Let's see how he gets down this hill.
Conservatively. Hear the brakes? That's smart. Real temptation to just power it off of there and impress the folks, but you nose it over or break the suspension early, and it definitely wasn't worth a couple of fan thrills. We'll be back with more from Laughlin in a moment. We're back on the desert roads and trails around Laughlin, Nevada, and we're following one of the big names in the business. This is Roger Mears Chevrolet, currently running 11th. Talk about a disastrous season. 19th in the point standings. Roger has run over everything in Southern California, Nevada, and most of Mexico this year, and the results are in the standings. Just a terribly frustrating season for one of the sport's true all-time greats. Now we see Tom Baker at the wheel of Bob Ritchie's truck slowing down because Marty Coyne is off in the bottom of that big ravine. Baker checking to make sure Coyne's okay. He's out of the race.
Well, he's got to be pretty disappointed here, but you know, I happen to know that he's actually a pretty happy guy right now for a better reason. His son, 15-year-old Travis Coyne, entered and won his first race yesterday. Marty told him, you stay off of drugs, you get good grades, and you stay out of trouble, I'll get you a race car. His son won.
How'd he get in there anyway?
Well, there's a hole right here where Walker is, right there. Marty got into that hole, throttled himself out, overcorrected, and dumped it right off the edge of the hill.
He's lucky he's okay. That's a fairly deep ravine. Rob McCackern now running 9th after starting better than that. He was 2nd in the early going. What's happened to the defending series champion here, Bob?
Well, early in the race, they heard a howling from the rear. They felt a vibration in the roll cage, and it turned out that they lost the left rear rotor. They stopped, capped it off, and went on.
It has cost a lot of positions for McCackern here. Watch that right front wheel. You get a real sensation how rough this terrain is and how that suspension works to absorb it. See the body? It's relatively stable, as Walker Evans described it. It's just like sitting in a big old marshmallow riding on top of that stuff. Speak of the devil, here's Walker. And this is a part of the course that is causing everybody particular difficulty. We talk about suspension. In this case, the most important thing the suspension does is gets the power to the ground.
Very true. In this case, the handling of the truck makes all the difference. Here's where a long wheelbase truck is kind of penalized against a short wheelbase truck. They've got to be very quick and darty getting around these turns. This race was going to be won by someone who was able to be like a tenth quicker on all these turns. More than 25% of the first lap is in this section.
Classic case of a racer having to slow down to go fast. Now watch Walker on the brakes hard, coming into this hairpin corner. Very, very tight through there, and big ruts too.
Big ruts, and they're going to get deeper as the laps go on. These trucks really dig out some holes. This is on a power line road that follows a high tension line, but it's so tight and twisty that the driver actually has a hard time seeing around to the right.
We go back up front with young Jimmy Johnson, the race leader. What a find this kid is. 19 years old, and coming down to the end of lap 1, he has built a huge lead. He was first off the line.
With no dust, he got himself over 2.5 minutes ahead of the rest of the guys. And look at that enthusiastic driving. You know, this is a case where the question for the race may end up becoming, will youth and enthusiasm overcome old age and treachery, because he's up against some real veteran drivers. The Laughlin Leap.
Big jump.
Beautiful, beautiful. Lands tight. The truck lands and sticks. That's a very good sign. That truck is dialed right now. He's coming in for a pit.
They're paying $7,500, by the way, as he stops to make the first lap official. $7,500 to the truck that makes the longest jump over the Laughlin Leap. A lot of the drivers told us before the race they would wait until the last lap to really try to uncork their big jump so they don't hurt the truck. Here's the pit stop.
Going to be pretty straightforward here. You know, pitting after the first lap is not normal, but this truck has got a lot of range in it. They're going to put on lights. They're going to add fuel. They're going to give Jimmy a little encouragement. John Nelson is in there telling him he's doing a good job, keeping up a good, smart pace. And they're going to let him go and probably go the rest of the way without any more stops if they're able.
Patience is going to be the key in this thing. Save the truck. Don't hurt it. Still getting the fuel in. About 68 gallons of fuel these things will hold, so it takes a while to top it off. Now he's ready to go, and Johnson heads back out onto the course. Nobody in front of him, and a big lead and a fresh load of fuel. This kid is on a real roll. And what a find he is. Boy, for the Nelson and Nelson team, which anchor this effort for Chevrolet, they got to be happy to have this kid. He's got a bright future. Let's hear from John Nelson about the pit stop.
Well, I tell you what, Jimmy is on the gas. The kid's going fast. He's got a huge lead. First lap, we said, hey, we got to stop him. Put those lights on, top it off with fuel. He'd be good to go for the rest of the race.
No stops.
No more stops.
That's good news for Jimmy Johnson. Some bad news for Jim Smith. He had inherited second spot when McCackern had the brake problems. He's now slipped back to third because the Simon & Simon truck is on the move, showing second on corrected time. We'll explain about corrected time a little later. As you watch Jimmy Johnson out here, we found a surprise out in the desert. Ron Stobaugh's a spectator. Why aren't you racing?
After rolling the truck over near the finish line of the Baja 500, we had to miss the fireworks race. We've been rebuilding it, upgrading it to competitive specs, and the truck is really tricked now. Unfortunately, we took it out 2 weeks ago to test. Took our new race motor out, had a bad temperature gauge, and unfortunately we burned it up. So we're forced to regroup, skip this race, pull our funds, and get ready for the Baja 1000 for our sponsors, Rancho Suspension, BF Goodrich, and 4 Parts Wholesalers. We want to give them 100% effort, and I think we'll be ready for that. But unfortunately, we will have to miss this race.
Now, even without Ron Stobaugh, we had 17 trucks start today, and only the second year for the trophy truck division. A lot of people have ponied up the $250,000 it takes to build one of these things. Jimmy Johnson's got the fastest thing out there for the moment, although Simon and Simon are closing in. And we now have a report that Ivan Stewart's truck is missing on one cylinder. The 6-cylinder is running on 5, which could be a big potential problem for the man who would be champion here today. Riding on board with Kurt LeDuc, man, you don't want to run off there, do you?
Well, it looks pretty steep to me. I kind of like hugging the inside on that hill.
We'll take a break and be back with more. It's the Laughlin Desert Challenge on ESPN. Back at the Laughlin Desert Challenge, look out, the leader a little hot into the hairpin turn. Jimmy Johnson in the Chevrolet showing the way. Adjusts and continues on. Meanwhile, here's a great opportunity to explain corrected time. Rob McCachran started second. He's currently 7th. The truck right behind him is Jim Smith, who started 3rd. In other words, he started a minute behind McCachran. But as you can see, because of McCachran's brake trouble, Smith is much less than a minute behind him now. He's gained ground since the start of the race on McCachran, and thus on corrected time, this truck is actually ranked higher in the order than McCachran's truck, even though McCachran is ahead of Smith on the road. Now, you may recall that the last time we saw Smith, he was ahead of McCachran. What's happened is that Smith had a flat tire, and so they continue to swap that position on the road, though Smith is getting the better of it on corrected time. Meanwhile, Jason Baldwin in the Ford continue to just fling that thing around the desert.
Well, he's just so much fun to watch drive. He's having himself a pretty good run here. Now, he's run very high in the running on the last 2 races. He may do very, very well here at Laughlin.
He's about beat the fenders off the thing, as you can see, but he is definitely not slowing down. Here comes Ivan Stewart in the Toyota. He is 4th, but the engine is missing, and behind him we see the Simon and Simon truck, and that's the truck that's on the move. They have come from 8th spot to rank 2nd on corrected time, and Ivan just barely got in front of them. He stopped to try to fix the Toyota.
Well, at the end of the pit straight is where Ivan pinched him off, but now Paul Simon is in Ivan's dust, and he's going to look for every opportunity he can to come up on him to try and get around him. This is not an easy situation because the course is so tight. The driver has to be so patient. It's very, very, very hard to do.
Stewart stopped to try to fix the ignition. Realizing Simon was coming, went ahead and left again, and the truck is reported still missing. Larry Ragland back in 9th spot with the Chevrolet. This is a new truck.
Very, very quick truck. This course favors the maneuverability of this new race car. When Ragland gets up on somebody, he'll be able to dart around him if he can get up on somebody. The dust is really, really a problem for these guys.
On the sound of that power plant. There's a good example of why it's hard to pass on this course. This is Steve Kelly, who started 4th, but is going backwards. See how tight and twisty it is, and he seems a little hesitant. Bob, what's happening here?
He's having a steering box problem, and what it's really doing is it's making it very difficult for Steve to turn to the right. The truck does okay going to the left, but on right turns, the steering fights him. It locks a little bit, so he has to use the throttle to kind of goose it around there. And, you know, on this kind of a road, it's not a pleasant deal because you've got a wall on the right and a clip on the left. And I just say he's really working very, very hard at this.
I would want my steering working if I were going to be driving along the edge of some of these cliffs. Not too bad here, but as we saw in that earlier onboard shot from LeDuc, there are some places on this course where you definitely don't want to go off.
Well, and you know, there's so much of this tight stuff in here that it's actually costing Steve a lot of time. He's dropped from his 4th start position down to 8th in the running here because of this steering box.
Saw a struggle for Steve Kelly, who started 4th and is moving backwards in a typical section of this Laughlin Desert Challenge course, fighting it up through the hills and the rocks and the ruts and trying to maintain traction.
Here's Richie and Baker. This is Tom Baker driving. This is a great team, probably in its swan song. They're a team that needs a sponsor, and they've got a great setup to go. They're running very hard at this race.
There's Walker Evans, who won here 10 years ago in a Class 8 truck. Whaley gets the trophy truck over on its nose, and that's probably our cue to find out more about what a trophy truck is. They didn't exist 10 years ago. Bob Bauer.
Well, Dave, trophy trucks are a fairly new series. They've only been out in the desert for 2 years, and they are really radically different from the trucks we used to run. Walker, what makes a truck a trophy truck?
Well, it's a completely tubular frame. They have about 25 inches of front wheel travel, as much as 30 inches of rear wheel travel. And let me tell you, they've got all the safety features of any race vehicle, such as 5-way seat belts, fuel-safe tanks. They've got onboard fire extinguishers and lots of tubing around that driver.
Well, Walker, what happens when you get a flat tire?
Well, we have air jacks just like an Indy car. The only thing different is we carry a nitrogen bottle to air up our jacks. The co-rider jumps out, puts a little leg or swings the jack down, then gives a little tap on the side of the truck. We just turn a valve and the whole side of the truck lifts up off the ground.
Walker, your Dodgers are the only ones out here running V10s. Now, how different is this V10 than the one I could buy in a truck at the dealer?
Well, it develops a lot of torque. Believe me, we have modified this engine. But really, off-road racing, the backbone of it is torque, brute torque. The truck weighs a lot. It's got a lot of different kinds of terrain to go through, and torque is the key factor that we like to deal with.
Halfway through the 2nd year of this trophy truck racing, you guys have really come a long way.
Well, we have developed a nice package, but as you know, in racing, you're never done testing and you're never done developing. And believe me, another year or so from now, it's even going to be that much better.
All right, thanks, guys. Look what we found out here in the desert. Hello to you, too, folks. We'll be back with more of the Laughlin Challenge right after this. We're back at the Laughlin Desert Challenge. The leader, Jimmy Johnson, is in trouble, and behind him, things have really tightened up. Let's take it one thing at a time. What happened to Johnson?
Lost a torque converter here, which puts him out of the running for the win, although I know this team will continue to fix that truck and go on to try and salvage a finish out of this deal.
Johnson had built up a big lead. I'm sure there are those who will wonder if he wasn't running the truck too hard, maybe expending a little too much effort, getting distance off the Laughlin lead. In any case, his teammate in the Nelson & Nelson Chevrolet stable, Larry Ragland, has inherited the lead on corrected time, but it is tight because hot on his heels, again on corrected time, the Ford team of Simon & Simon. This thing has really turned into a Donnybrook out here in the desert.
One of those Ford Chevy battles, I tell you, you can't ask for much better racing than this. Here's the Simons right now.
This is Paul Simon at the wheel. Dave Simon waiting to take over. They are second on corrected time behind Ragland. Interestingly enough, those two trucks started 8th and 9th today.
The shadows are getting long, Dave. The sun is going down. They've got themselves a challenge. You know, Dave Simon's about to get in here, but he's got himself a situation where he's got to get himself up to speed immediately when he gets in that truck. They're going to block the visor on his helmet so that he can have like a little sun visor to knock some of that sun down.
Meanwhile, progress report on Ivan Stewart trying to clinch the championship with a race still to go. He's running 3rd despite the misfiring engine. How's that working?
Well, at high R's, the thing isn't missing. At low R's, it is missing. Right now, he's doing everything he possibly can to stay ahead of the Simons physically to try and make time on him. He knows they're right on his tail coming after Ivan Stewart.
Well, back at their pit, Dave Simon has completed the adjustments on his helmet, and he's preparing to climb in and continue this pursuit of the would-be champion. Let's see what he has to say as he prepares to take over his driving stint.
Well, right now it looks like about a three-way tie for first. Ivan, Laughlin, and ourselves. Even McCachran's in there. It's just real close right now.
So how are you going to play it from here?
Well, we've got to finish a race to win it, and we're, as you can see, we're taking off right into the sun, so we got to be smart, but we still got to run hard and not let the other guys make any time on us.
How many more minutes before you get in the car?
Probably, as you can see, as I get nervous, it's getting closer, probably about 4 minutes.
That's the 4-minute nervous right there. 1 minute, he's jumping out of his driver's suit.
Mouth gets dry, heart rate goes up, concentration goes hardcore. Nothing else matters except what he's going to do in the next 10 minutes.
Here's Paul bringing the truck toward that driver change with second place in his pocket and hoping to improve on that and take over the lead. Crowd waiting for the completion of lap 2. We're on board with Kurt Leduc. And you get a pretty good idea of what he sees, which isn't much.
Now, when you're going over hills like this, it's funny, you know, you can be blind just for a second, but the eyes of the driver are on the forward part of the course and then off to the right. Every now and then you'll see one of these red course markers that tell them you're on the right course right now. Go ahead, keep going ahead, or go to the right, or go to the left. They have green course markers that say wrong way. So the driver's looking for those red splotches on the right, and he wants to avoid seeing any greens because he can't go through them.
Well, thus far, Leduc is pretty much holding his own on the heels of the Baja 500 win. He's just about where he started here today, running 8th uncorrected time. He started 11th. Meanwhile, the 13th starter in the race has actually moved forward a bit. Roger Mears having a better day than what he's seen in some of his previous races this year.
Well, it's a better day. It isn't a perfect day. He's got a steering problem where the box is leaking a little bit, so they have to continually stop and put fluid in, and it makes it a little difficult to steer. But actually, he's got to be pretty pleased with the way the truck's running over the whole picture.
Had an interesting matchup of two of the great racing families. Let's see what he does over the big jump. Conservative. Two of the great names in racing, Mears and Unser, teamed up this year for the Pikes Peak Hill Climb. Roger built the truck, and Robbie Unser drove it to a new record up the mountain. Hey, he got the left front up off the ground. He's hustling that truck pretty well here as Mears tries to move up from 9th spot. And here's Javier Espinosa, currently in 10th.
Javier is actually moving really fast here. El Piloto es muy rápido, huh? He's going real fast. Look at this.
Started 17th, so he's moved up rather substantially. He was a questionable starter. We're going to have to get a faster helicopter here to keep up with Javier and the boys. He's gassing it up real well. Ivan Stewart has moved up a spot. The Toyota is now 3rd. The misfire seems to be resolved for the moment, but wait a minute. Robbie Gordon, having replaced his dad in the Ford truck, is stuck, and nobody will stop and help him. And I think Robbie's a little unhappy about that.
Well, he needs to be unhappy. Poor guy. You know, because he was running his Indy car, he wasn't able to pre-run this race course. What happened actually is that some locals changed the course markers in this section. Those green markers I talked about saying wrong way, they put them on the real race course.
Oh, look, they're digging it out by hand. Look at that.
By hand, a whole race car out by hand. This is tough.
So what's the deal with the markers?
Well, Robbie read the wrong way markers and went, he paid attention, but he went up the wash that's right next to him, and it turned out to be a dead end. When he came back out of that wash after realizing his mistake, he got it buried in the sand. He was trying to do the right thing, but if he had been able to pre-run, he may not have been in this situation.
Maybe if I kick it, we can get it out. This on the heels of that 15th place at Laguna Seca in the IndyCar race. Not a happy day today for Robbie Gordon. Here comes Paul Simon upon the scene. Currently running 2nd. And adding insult to injury, again, you got to sympathize with Simon. I mean, he can't really stop and help, can he? He's got to maintain his corrected time here in order to try to have a shot at Larry Ragland, the race leader, and to try to stay ahead of Ivan Stewart, who's trying to clinch the title. We're back. We're watching Robbie Gordon. He has dug himself out of a hole here and is trying to play catch up. And he is in trouble. Look out. He almost got that thing over on its side, ran her off the course.
But you know, he's not the first guy to do that. Look at that rooster tail. Is he on the pipe or what, Dave? My gosh.
Let's take another look at that. Is he as close to rolling over as it looked like there?
Well, no, not really. I mean, look at the dirt there. He's not the only driver to foul up in that spot. There's probably a course marker down somewhere that doesn't let these guys know turn left.
Course came right back to him too, didn't it? Now here's the stop for the driver change for the Simons. It is Paul out, Dave in. You mentioned the lengthening shadows you see there. How close we are to darkness. As Dave Simon heads back out, here's what Paul has to say.
It was fuel, tires, and a driver change. I think it was somewhere around 40 seconds, which is pretty quick for us out here in the desert, and especially doing the driver change, getting the belts all adjusted and everything. And if you take a look at that carpet right there, you can tell he was in a hurry when he got out of here.
Well, Dave Simon has reason to hurry. He's virtually neck and neck with this guy, Ivan Stewart, and Larry Ragland for the race lead. It's a three-way battle, and you can throw a blanket over those three leaders on corrected time. Stewart's in front of them on the road, in part perhaps because of the work of the suspension on that truck. We discussed that element with Tom Morris.
In the off-road racing environment, you're looking for a lot of durability to handle the heat and the abuses of the deep terrain and the treacherous conditions that you're going through. With the street performance, you're not concerned so much with being able to jam ditches with your truck. The off-road, you have to be able to hit ditches at 90, 100 miles an hour, stay in control of that vehicle, and that takes complete different damping characteristics of both to keep in control and keep your suspension working properly. This shock's what you buy from your local store to put on your truck to have it work a little bit better when you're off-road, to supply a little bit more control to it, to make the car handle better. This is what we've developed to go off-road racing. You can see that in this case we're using a coilover shock for the spring on the car, but we've got bigger shaft, bigger housing, a reservoir on it with cooling fins, and this is all to carry the additional loads and demands that we have in an off-road racing application. For us, the two key ingredients are tires and shocks. Between the two of them, they control the vehicle and its performance standard that you're looking for to have the response and control of your truck in any situation you get into, whether it's on the street or off-road, or it's off-road racing. Any combination thereof, you need to be able to point the vehicle where you want it to go and have it respond and perform for you.
This guy's pointing his vehicle toward the series championship. Ivan Stewart has taken over the lead. Larry Ragland's truck is reported overheating, still running, but off the pace. The Toyota crew await their would-be champion. We'll be right back. We're back at Laughlin. There's Robbie Gordon continuing to gas up that truck. He is 14th in holding. Actually hasn't made much progress since he got stuck earlier, but you know, there is a bit of vengeance here, I think, because ahead of him is the #1 of Rob McCaffrey, who wouldn't stop and help Robbie, and don't think for a minute that Robbie's going to stop here for him.
Well, Rob is real stuck right here. In fact, the Rough Rider team truck is about to pull him out of it. This is at checkpoint 7, and he lost time here. In fact, it cost him a few positions.
Meanwhile, the race leader and series leader, Ivan Stewart, is headed back to town, back to his final pit stop in anticipation of not only a potential race victory, but also the championship. Now, he's back, headed for the Laughlin jump, the Laughlin leap, and so far he's been driving around that section of the course, and he's going to do it again. He's not taking any chances.
When Ivan has a plan, Ivan follows the plan. Nothing will make him deviate from a winning plan, and that's what he's doing.
He has won all the significant races and championships in off-roading, and now will add the trophy truck title, perhaps with a victory here. No surprise to see the Iron Man running out front. That's a great team.
They're really, really good. You know, the relaxed look of that team when they come into the pit doesn't belie the actual tension, the practice, and the rehearsals those guys go through. They're among the very top in the desert when it comes to pitting a truck in a quick, fast time.
Ivan Stewart, 50 years old, won the Baja 500 solo a few years back to earn the title Iron Man. Up and into the Toyota pit, and they go to work servicing this truck for the final time. Looks routine. Tire change, fuel. Changing tires on that thing's a two-man job. That thing's heavy.
They are heavy, but you know, this is like music. Notice there's no voices, there's no hollering and screaming, nothing going on. People doing their jobs, walking, not running, getting it done, and then getting out of the way.
No problem up here on the front end?
Making sure it's right is all they're doing. They're just making sure it's right.
And he's out of there. A good, clean final stop for Ivan Stewart. Here's Tommy Morris.
That was a fast pit stop. How long did that take?
That was 29 seconds, Bob, which sounds a little slow possibly, but you're talking about fuel, tires, driver service for goggles, wiping his face, and installing lights on the front and checking the car over. So these guys did an outstanding job getting him in and out. We're first car on the road and leading in the time frame also.
So you're first in the race?
We're first in the race.
But you note they didn't stop to compose a victory speech for Ivan during that 29 seconds. Here's Jim Smith, and he is currently running fourth. He has lost a spot on corrected time to Walker Evans, who had a good lap that time and managed to drop Smith a position again on corrected time. He's going to make a run at the Laughlin Leap here.
This truck handles so well. Look at it land and stick just like it wasn't even a jump. Pretty good.
$7,500 to the truck that makes the longest jump over that leap here tonight, and we would anticipate most of the long jumps will come on the final lap. You can see it's what, a couple 300 yards from the Laughlin Leap to the finish line. Worth perhaps taking a chance for $7,500 that close to the end. Not worth it on lap 1 or 2. Smith needs to hustle. He wants to catch Walker Evans. We're heading into the final lap in the darkness. There you see your top 5. We'll be right back. Rob McCackern back in the pits at Laughlin, Nevada. What's up, Bob?
Well, the hood's off. Looks like it's staying off. Sure signs of more brake trouble. A guy over the master cylinder in the left front of the car, 2 guys under the rear. I'd say that he's had a major brake problem. He only has front brakes left right now.
McCackern has been plagued by that problem all day. He was second off the line, now 6th in the running. And here is Ivan Stewart, having made that last lap through the desert. He is coming home at Laughlin, Nevada, not only with the race victory, but also with the championship. Will he do the Laughlin Leap? Nah. Down the bypass, says, I want the checkered flag. They can keep that $7,500.
Well, he's got $50,000 riding on winning the championship. It's arithmetic.
There you go. Not hard to figure that one out. Although with the lead he has, he could just about push it home. He's got a couple of minutes. There is the checkered flag for Ivan Stewart, winner of the Laughlin Desert Challenge, champion of the series for 1995. Jim Smith headed home, running third. I think he'll want a shot at that $7,500. He's all sideways. He got on the throttle pretty quickly there, trying to get a big run, a big drive at the jump. Pretty good air.
Yeah, not enough, though. He got into the soup out there and couldn't get bite, so he didn't get it very far. Poor guy.
Notice how he early apex that last corner as a result of it. Now comes to the checkered flag and will claim 3rd place in the overall standings on corrected time. Cool-off time for the Iron Man. 50-year-old Ivan Stewart has claimed his 2nd victory of the year. He won the opener at Parker, Arizona, and has since been consistent, though not necessarily spectacular. 6th at San Felipe, 4th in Vegas, 3rd in the Baja 500 and the Fireworks 250, and now 1st again tonight.
Here's the Simons.
Ooh, that was a good-looking lead.
That was a long one.
Camera angle do a lot for you. Here's the kid. Ooh, that may be the winner right there. That's Jimmy Johnson. He broke that truck. Yeah, he's won the Laughlin Leap with an 86-foot jump. They replaced the torque converter in time for him to pick up the cash.
Roger Mears comes in for his finish. He's got to be glad to get that finish line, I tell you.
He's happy to get 4 laps in the book. Kurt Leduc, not bad. 5th spot for Leduc here today, and he moved up steadily and consistently from 11th starting spot.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ensenada, Mexico.
And Javier Espinosa, that's a good run indeed. Started 17th, will finish 9th.
Finest finish for him all year long, and smart driving did it.
And Robbie Gordon does his best to muster a smile.
Tired one. Here's Dave Simon. He's tuckered. Look at him soak up that water.
But somehow the guy who wins the race always looks refreshed and ready to meet the people, meet his adoring public. Ivan Stewart with another championship.
He really is good with his public. He appreciates his fans and shows it.
Kissing babies. Looks like a presidential candidate. Look at there. The kid's got an Ivan Stewart t-shirt on. Cool. We'll be back to talk to the winner right after this. The Score Laughlin Desert Challenge is brought to you by Yokohama Tire Corporation. When you turn on Yokohama tires, you turn on technology. And by Toyota Motorsports. Our minds are always racing. And by Dodge. The more things change, the more things look like the new Dodge. Well, the population of Laughlin certainly had an exciting day here today. They've gathered at the finish line to honor the heroes, the winners, and indeed the new champion. Here are your overall results. Stewart by 4 1/4 minutes over Dave Simon, with Smith, Ragland, and Leduc rounding out the top 5.
You know, Kurt told me that he wanted to finish 5th to get a great starting position for the Baja 1000. It looks like he got exactly that.
As you look at 6th through 10th, how about Larry Rossler? First time in a trophy truck, the former motorcycle great finishes 7th.
Very impressive. You know, with 10 overalls at the Baja 1000, he can do it again.
That will be the next stop for these drivers, the Baja 1000, and you will, of course, see it here on ESPN. Noteworthy, I guess, that his 10 previous wins came on 2 wheels, not 4. Let's hear from the runner-up. Good fast run today for Paul Simon.
Well, it wasn't quite fast enough. You see, we're up here standing on the number 2 spot. We need a little bit more time to get it done, and the wind quit blowing. We ran into some dust, and we had to settle for 2nd place. But it was a good fast run. We ran on the BF Goodrich tires, didn't have one flat, which on this course kind of surprises me. It was really rocky and dusty, and the Ford truck ran flawless all day, but we just had to settle for 2nd place.
Settling for 2nd is no disgrace when it's 2nd behind this guy. Here is the moment in which the race and the championship were secured. Ivan Stewart claims the Laughlin Desert Challenge, and with it the $50,000 prize for the trophy truck title. And then joins Bob Bauer to tell us how he did it.
You know, I got by a couple of cars that were relatively fast, and I got by them in easy places, and then there was a fast car ahead of them, so they didn't slow me down. You know, timing was right. You know, some days the luck falls your way, and sometimes it doesn't. Today it fell my way.
And as we say, with it the championship, Jim Smith cannot catch Ivan Stewart in the last remaining race, the Baja 1000. The title is clinched. McCachran, Evans, and Simon all have a good position battle going behind Smith. Here is the frustration of Robbie Gordon after flying in from the IndyCar race. He got stuck, and combined that with a mechanical problem. Well, Robbie didn't have much fun today.
You know, to get here and fly over here as fast as I could and to see the car broken down is just really a bummer, because you know, these guys work really hard, and then to go 14 miles and have a steering box problem just is really disappointing.
Quick final thought, Bob Bauer.
Well, the shortest race of the season was the most work for the drivers, I can tell you.
It was also the most rewarding for Ivan Stewart, who locks up the Trophy Truck Championship for 1995. That's it from Laughlin. I'm Dave Despain for Bob Bauer. We'll see you next time at the Baja 1000.
Yeah. I thought you were going to get stuck there perfect. I looked back and he was stuck in the middle road, but he was right in the middle down that trail. Yeah. And he was there on the last lap, right? Yeah, but he moved over. Hey, I came around the corner, I'm chasing him, and he's not there. And I'm thinking, there's nowhere to go. It looks like he's going to disappear now. So I'm thinking, you know what it was? That side of the hill was loose. Stuck like a cat right to it.